Hello and welcome to the Onelife Young Adults Book Club. We are really excited to be back. We are reading an amazing book at the moment called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. There you go, Ash has got it there. So we're reading this over the next couple of months. This time we've read section 1. But before we go into that, I would love to introduce you to my co-host for today, which is very exciting. This is Ash. Welcome, Ash. We're really excited to have you with us. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're up to at the moment? Where are you based?
Yeah, so my name's Ash. Currently, I am living in Wrexham, which is in the north of Wales. It's the heart of North Wales, maybe. I moved here in August to be part of a church plant here, and I'm the youth pastor. And so that's kind of what I'm getting up to, trying to plant a church and a youth group amongst COVID and read some books along the way.
It's a pretty tricky task, but I can imagine you're doing a fantastic job. And we have invited Ash to come and join us because Ash reads more books than probably anyone that I know. And it's a really good book, so I always listen to Ash's recommendations. And actually this book especially was one that Ash kept going on about and saying we had to read it, we had to read it. And when we put it on the poll, it was overwhelmingly voted for by you guys. And Ash, I guess, why do you think it's important? This book's all about habit. Why do you think it's important that as Christians and as leaders, we particularly think about our habits?
Yeah, so I think I'm just going to throw you a stat that's not even in the official book, it's in the prologue bit or whatever. It doesn't have a page number, but he says that 40% of our actions that we perform in a day, we don't think about. They aren't actual decisions we make. They're just habits that our brain automatically does and performs. And I think that's a scary statistic, that 40% of what we do each day, we don't really have a lot of control over. And so I think as leaders and as Christians, and just as a human being, if I'm being honest with you, we need to take back a bit of that control, We can't be letting 40% of our decisions, our actions just slide like that. And so I think why I love this book, and I think getting to grips with habits and trying to understand it is so important for leadership and discipleship and faith, is that at the end of the day, we want to be in control of what we're doing. We want to be making those decisions so that we don't have bad habits that then reflect poorly on us and mean that we act poorly, or we lead poorly, or we lead a bad, life, or not life as a whole, but you know what I mean. So I think that's why it's so important. It's about, being in control of that, and trying to be good leaders means you have to take responsibility for 100% of your day, not 60%.
I love that. Yeah, I found that statistic really challenging, and just this idea that actually so much of what we do when we have a habit, actually our brain isn't engaging in the decision making process. Actually, we're not choosing that; it's choosing it for us because previously we've chosen that. And the book kind of talks about this first third of the book is all about individual habits, and I really loved it. Kind of explains the habit loop, which we probably all heard about, but explains it really well. And it talks about, there's a trigger or a cue that kind of sets us off. So let's say we're talking about we just can't stop eating donuts. We have this trigger, this cue. Maybe we see a box of donuts sitting there, and we get this craving, and the craving is what kind of drives the habit loop. And our habit or action is, to eat the donut, and then the reward is the sugar high or the taste that we get after. And actually, when we do this, when we get that reward, that dopamine hit, it means that actually we start to get this craving, and then whenever we go past the donut box, we start to get the craving for that. And if we don't fulfill that, we can get this sense of, he talks about it in mice, and he says, they experience depression when they don't get whatever it is that they're meant to get. I think it was some grape juice. These mice experience depression because actually they were getting ready to get that reward. And actually for all of us, we probably have loads of habits, and we don't even think about what those are and what kind of our cue, our habit and our reward are. And it's just so interesting. This book, he talks about, all around replacing kind of what the habit is, because he says we can't change. Well, no, we can change our habits. We can't get rid of our habits, but we can change them. And the thing that we can change is the habit itself, is the kind of thing that we're doing. And I was thinking about, for me, what what are the habits I want to change? One thing that I'm going to talk about this later, but actually I would love to change. I snooze my alarm. It's a terrible, terrible habit. But I think, you know, what's the cue? Well, the trigger is, you know, my alarm goes off. I hear the alarm. My habit is that, you know, I really want to stay in bed, so I just press snooze, and the reward is getting 5 more minutes in bed. So actually what I need to do is change what that is, and get a different reward that actually I still have that trigger, I still get a reward, but actually my habit might be different. So maybe next time we'll get to hear a little bit more about what I've changed that to, and if I've managed that, which I'm slightly nervous that I've told everyone that, because that might not happen. But actually, like, what I guess what stood out to you, you talked about kind of taking responsibility for our habits, and I know that's something that you're really passionate about. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that and what you got from the book?
Yeah, so again, I'm going to throw at you guys another quote from the book that I think is just like blew my mind a little bit, so I love it. And it's talking, this section where he talks about the American football coach, and he's talking about how like he was like the pioneer of bringing in habits, simple habits, to make successful teams. And he talks and he says, champions don't do extraordinary things. They do ordinary things, but they do them without thinking, too fast for the other team to react. They follow the habits they've learned. And I think, although obviously that's for American football in very specific context, I think we can all take that. And so part of taking responsibility for ourselves, our leadership, our discipleship, our lives, is to take responsibility to excel and allow ourselves to excel because of habits. And so let's say you're a leader, you're head of a business. Every day you're going to be making hundreds and thousands of decisions in your workplace, and your leadership is going to be tested. But actually, if you've spent time building quality habits, so when a situation happens, you don't even have to think about it, because you know, ingrained in your brain somewhere is this little neuron that says, this is how you do it well. You've done this 1,000 times already. This is the appropriate way to respond to this. And it just happens. And your leadership is going to excel, and it gives your brain capacity to do more. It means you can expand your leadership, expand your lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's so important that we take hold of it, because equally, what's scary is they say in the book, he talks about another scientist who's an expert in this, that you have mentioned it, Helen, that habits never go away. They're encoded in our brain forever, and they can be rewritten. And I think it's scary when I think about, gosh, some of the habits I have in my life, that's there forever. I can't get rid of that. Helen can never get rid of her habit of snoozing, but she can change it. And so I think if we want to be good leaders, if we want to excel, we have to take responsibility for that. I think, yeah, we're delusional if we don't sit down and start reworking stuff. And the reality is you can't do all of them in one go. And you can't start making loads of new habits in one go. You've got to take small steps. But that's what taking responsibility for your leadership in your life looks like, is taking those small steps, one habit at a time. And yeah, and that's what I think is so important.
I love that. It is so important. Like you say, like it's a key thing in leadership, actually, as Christians. We're told, you know, well, I love, there's a Christine Kane quote. I love Christine Kane. She talks about Christianity. It's not a behavior modification program. It's a heart transplant. But actually in that heart transplant, actually, there are things in our lives that we need to change. And there are things, actually, we want to be leaders, Christian leaders who read our Bible every day, and actually want that to be a habit in our lives. We want to choose kindness every day, and actually that's a habit. How do we respond to people? How do we respond to gossip? And again, with our leadership, I can see in the background, Ash has got many books, but one of them that I've read that I really love is The Ride of a Lifetime. And one thing I was struck by, this is the guy who has run Disney for, I don't know how many years, Ash, 20?
No, just under 20 years.
Just under 20 years, and taken it from like a really bad place to a really good place. And this is his autobiography. And one of the things about that was just his routine and his habits. I was so struck by, just like the fact that actually as leaders, it's really important that we invest in those and do something with them. And actually, this is slightly putting you on the spot, but what would you say? You've read this book a while ago, and we've talked about how we want to put it into action. What would you say you took from this? Like, can you think of a habit that maybe you've put into place in your life to kind of use this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, 100% for me, like one of my, I think this is going to be classic, you know it from behind me, but reading is a huge habit. Like I haven't always been a big reader, but it's such a huge part of my life now. But it came from a desire that I want to be someone who learns. Like, I struggled in school, I didn't really give it my all, and I kind of regret it looking back on it. But actually, I know that I really enjoy learning, and part of my leadership is to be someone who learns and then shares that knowledge. And so I knew I needed to make a habit. And so I read this book. This is one of the first books I read like properly and like made notes on and like really took it in. And from that, now like I have a habit of I read every morning, like pretty much without fail. I'll read to learn and make notes and that kind of stuff. And it was really hard at first. Like, it takes a lot. Like, I think later in the book he talks about, spoilers, but like about willpower, and you have like a limited amount that you can use, and so you have to use a lot at the start. But now it's like I wake up, and if I get to midday and I haven't read, like I'm fidgety, like something's wrong in me, where I'm like, gosh, I haven't done this habit, because it's so important to who I am. And like, as a result of it, like, I've learned so much more. Like, I've learned, I think if I hadn't read, you know, in the last 3 years, you know, I wouldn't be here talking to you. Like, there's so many things I wouldn't have learned and done because of it. And so, yeah, I think that's one example that this book just inspired me even more.
That's amazing. I love that sense that you're even like, you actively get fidgety because you're like, actually that's a habit, and like you've got that craving, and to go actually that's been built over the years. That wasn't a natural thing at first. And I think we often think about habits in a really bad sense. We can so easily, I read this and I was just thinking of all my bad habits, but the sense of actually we can create good ones as well. And probably we'll have some really good habits as well, which is, we need to remember those as well, because I feel like this book could definitely challenge us a lot. But like we said, we want to make this practical. We want this to not just be something we read and then sit on a shelf and gather dust forever. We want to be leaders who take this stuff and put it into action. So we've just got a few kind of challenges for you. If you haven't read the first part of the book, first thing, read the first 3 chapters. There's so much more than what we've just said. We have literally just scratched the surface of all the stuff in here. And I guess choosing kind of one habit you want to change. What do you want to change? It might be you snooze as well. It might be that you can't walk past the donuts without taking one. It might be that, like Ash, you want to read a little bit more. But what is that habit that you want to change? And then the other challenge, Ash, was
to make a completely brand new habit. And so like we said, it's difficult to change an old habit, and that's something you should focus on in one part. But equally, I think we have enough space to form new habits, because that's completely new code that can be written into our brain. So yeah, I think that's the second part of the challenge, to take something completely new, something, you know, this will really benefit my faith or my leadership or my work or my relationships or whatever, and start implementing it. Write it down, draw out the habit loop, fill it in, and then start trying to do it.
Definitely. And the other thing we'd encourage you to do is chat to people about it. One thing that also talks about in the book, there's so much in there, is that actually you need to kind of be part of a group to do this. That actually you can be in kind of a group of people that really encourage change and help us to change. So who are those people that you're walking along beside? Maybe it's someone else you can read this book with. Maybe it's someone else who's just doing the book club in general. But look out for those people. Do it in a group. Do it alongside others. It's part of a journey together, and I'm really excited about doing the next section. Next month we'll be reading the next, I'm guessing it's another 3 chapters, which is all about organizations and habits as organizations. And a lot of us won't run organizations at the moment, but actually want to be leaders who are investing in ourselves for the future. Maybe it's that we can put it into practice in a team that we're running, or in the youth group we're running, or somewhere else for volunteering. But actually I think it's going to be really helpful as well. So thank you for doing the book club with us. Leave your comments below. We'd love to hear what you think, and me and Ash will be back next time for the next instalment of the book club. Lovely to see you guys, and we will see you soon. Bye.